Michael has in his book another idea that they should do if the Democrats win, which is to restart a draft, but only with the kids of the rich. It's a fascinating idea. I want to talk about it a little bit more. But first, on the idea of the draft, David Sirota has a question for you.
Yeah, Michael, last time you and I hung out, I spent some time with you walking the halls of Congress trying to run a FICA tree against members of Congress. It seems to me that the draft idea would make them even more uncomfortable than when you tried that. And it certainly seems to me that even among liberals, liberal members of Congress, liberal people, that the idea of conscripted service is not something that people, even on the left, are very comfortable with. What do you say to that? Do you think they can be comfortable with that? Do you think that discomfort is legitimate?
Sure, it's legitimate. I would never favor a general draft, certainly not until our government spends a few decades proving that we'll only use an army to truly defend our lives. And if that's the case, I think everybody, regardless of their age, would join up in some way to help protect the country, to protect ourselves, because obviously we want to live. So if it was truly a self-defense issue, I can't imagine anybody, regardless of their age, not wanting to join up, if not the Army, help in some supportive way. But my proposal is that for now, that we draft only the sons and daughters of the wealthy, the top 5% income earners. There are about a little over 3 million 18 to 26-year-olds who are the offspring of the rich. We have a little over 3 million in our armed forces right now, so it's an even match.
All right, we're having a little bit of an issue there, but you know, when I was reading Michael's book about the draft, and he said draft only the rich kids, I thought, oh, come on, Michael, you can't really do that. But then I thought about it, and he's right, man. We would never go to another war in our lifetimes if the rich had their own sons and daughters. And imagine if the Bush girls were in, or any of them, for all the senators and the congressmen, if they had their kids in the Army, you think we'd have gone to Iraq? Michael's 100% right. There's no way in the world we would have gone to Iraq. So, you know.
And I have something to add to that, Cenk. I think that was part of the reason why in the African American community there was very little support for the Iraq War in the beginning. You know, just because, you know, we disproportionately serve in the armed forces, and so we take that service, you know, and the risks very seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I hear you on that, and it seems that it didn't touch a lot of the communities in America, and so that's why there was no outpouring in the streets. You know, people always ask what's the difference between Vietnam and with all the protests and Iraq with not very many protests. Those people were protesting in Vietnam because it was their ass on the line. And if it's not their ass on the line, of course they're not going to protest as much. So, Michael, now that you're back, let me ask you a real quick question on that. I mean, are you serious about this proposal? Do you really think that they should draft the rich kids?
Yeah. If I were president, that's what I would definitely do that, because just for the reasons you just said, that the rich would never allow their sons and daughters to go off to a war unless it had something to do with protecting their wealth. So because it is all about protecting their wealth, let their own family fight to protect their wealth, unless they're willing to share that wealth with everybody else. Now, if that's the case, then I think everybody else would be willing to join in to protect the slice of pie that everybody is given. But that's not the way it's been happening. The gap between rich and poor continues to grow, and yet it's the poor and the working people that are having to sacrifice in order so that those on top can enjoy the fruits of all that. So, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. And
now, you know, you had another controversial point in the book, Michael, about McCain's POW service and whether we should take that head on. David had a question about that for you.
Yeah, I was very interested in the idea and your proposal to ask McCain a question about whether he thinks it's okay to essentially drop munitions and bombs on innocent civilians. However, McCain's POW record, I mean, it seems to be front and center in the campaign. Do you really think that Barack Obama should walk down that line to open up those questions? I mean, it sort of would be, I guess, not a reverse Swift vote, because the Swift votes were untrue, and I think that your point is right, that we should ask questions about our military policy. But is that really the direction you think Obama should take this campaign?
I think that anytime McCain uses his POW status, or especially the Vietnam War, to attack Obama's patriotism or his service to what he's done for this country, then it's fair game, because McCain has put it on the table. I wrote that chapter after I saw that commercial of McCain's where it begins with the summer of love and the hippies and rock and roll, and the announcer goes, while some people were, getting high and free love and all that, John McCain was flying missions over Vietnam, and he's the real hero. Well, let me say this about that. I feel really bad about what happened to McCain, and nobody would wish that on their worst enemy, what he had to go through 5.5 years in a POW camp. And we should all be as generous as possible toward him for the suffering that he had to go through. But for him to disparage those who stood up against an illegal and immoral war as being anything but heroes themselves, everybody who stood up against that war, everybody who stood up against this war is a hero, is a brave American. And to separate those who seek peace and to say only those who flew bombing missions and bombed civilian populations, which those aren't my words, those are McCain's words from his own autobiography, where he said that we bombed heavily populated areas of North Vietnam. They weren't just bombing military troops or military gunners or whatever. They were dropping bombs on neighborhoods. And in fact, when he was shot down, he dropped bombs on a neighborhood, on an electrical plant that was in a neighborhood in the capital city of Hanoi, very densely populated. And as Robert McNamara said, and I quote him in my book, we were killing essentially about 1,000 civilians a week, civilians. And they did that for 44 months during Operation Rolling Thunder, which is what the missions were that McCain flew during that time. So anybody who thought that was wrong and said so and protested against it, or refused to go and kill Vietnamese, those people are heroes in my book. And I think a lot of Americans feel that way too. So as long as McCain doesn't want to disparage people who are pro-peace, he can have his whole thing and what he did, and he feels good about it, whatever. But when he throws it out and says that everybody else wasn't patriotic, well, them's fighting words. And the Democrats and Obama, again, better take off the gloves and start fighting.